So that kind of made my drinking even worse after that, because I felt a lot of shame in that situation. And I was terrified of what I saw in the mirror. I have a problem. I need help. Instead of something being released, I felt something come in and I knew it was demonic. And my body started shaking like uncontrollably, and I couldn't stop my body at all.
What's going on, that Supernatural Talk podcast family? As you can tell, I'm in a little bit of a different setup. I'm in Canada right now, and we just had an amazing 2 days of revival. I've had a wonderful week here, actually, with the Canadian Forerunners and European Forerunners and American Forerunners, just with the Forerunner family. We've had a wonderful time, which means you should go to www.supernaturallife.org and be a part of the Forerunner family too by clicking the link that says Become a Forerunner. Also, before I jump into letting you know who's going to be on the podcast today, I want to ask you to subscribe, to hit the notification bell so you can be notified of every video that we put out here at that Supernatural Talk podcast. Hit the like button so that we can push this into the algorithm, and share because you care and you want your family and friends to hear testimonies of what Jesus is doing in people's lives. Now, I'm not going to be the host today. It's actually going to be not even Keeg's Ice White Rice Forever Nice, always, Forever Nice, a Rose Blanco Ice. Anyway, he's got a lot of names. But anyway, it's actually going to be Kaylee Calt. So she's going to be the podcast host today. You're going to see other people on here hosting this channel sometimes because we want to make sure you guys get a variety of the people that we are training here at the Supernatural Life to do all different sorts of things. So anyway, without further ado, I want to introduce you all to one of TSNL's very own long-standing forerunners, Katie Pence. All right, Kaylee, come on, take it away. Hold up. Wait a minute. Just wanted to tell you guys also to become a member of the channel because we got a lot of wild behind-the-scenes content, and there's a lot of Keeg's Ice that'll make you laugh. I'm telling you, it's really good. No, we have a lot of amazing behind-the-scenes content that you will actually get access to by becoming a member of this channel. All right, now enjoy the podcast.
Hey, Supernatural family. I am Kaylee Calt, and I'm so excited and honored to be here today to be interviewing this amazing woman of God who I'm so excited to introduce you to. She has come into my life personally just even this year, and I have gotten to see her grow so much, and I'm so excited to just share her testimony with you. So, our honored guest today is Katie Pence. Everybody say hi to Katie.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, so Katie, I am so excited you're here today. I want to just jump straight in because I know you have a packed testimony.
I sure do.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood, what it was like growing up, just a little bit of the history that you have in your life so we get a better understanding of who you are, where you came from, where you grew up, that stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, I grew up in Indiana. Shout out to all the Hoosiers out there. And basically, I grew up in a Christian household. I grew up in a non-denominational, but I also was raised Methodist as well, kind of all over the place. My parents, they got divorced when I was 4, but they stayed really good friends afterwards. Like some people had really messy divorces. I was really fortunate where my parents, they were still friends afterwards. So I kind of grew up in knowing Jesus and watching like VeggieTales and all of that. And I went to church every Sunday, sometimes throughout the weeks as well. So I knew the Lord pretty heavily then. I'm really, really grateful for that introduction to it as well. And so I grew up knowing the Lord. Yeah.
Yeah. So would you say that you had like a really personal, close relationship to the Lord, or how would you describe that? Or what age would you say you really felt like you were close to the Lord?
So I went to a lot of church camps. But when I was 13, I decided to give my life to the Lord. I got baptized, and I still have like my certificate and the picture and all that. I was so excited. So that's probably when I got really close with the Lord, was during that time period when I was 13. Um, but that's also when afterwards I really started getting more attacks from the enemy as well during that time.
So talk to me a little bit more about those attacks that you started getting when you were 13. Do you feel like it's because you came to know the Lord, or why do you think that happened?
I think it's definitely because I came to the Lord, because I was on fire for the Lord when I did that. I was so excited, and I really, like I said, I felt really close to him. But during that time, it's a really common thing too. Like I was having a lot of identity issues during that time. Like that was the first time I really felt rejection for the first time with some friends. And I just felt very out of place. And I was trying to find friendships in places where it wasn't good because I felt rejected. I was trying to become friends with all the other rejects too, if that makes sense. But anyways, during that time, it got really dark and I felt really alone. And that's when I started experimenting with drinking for the first time. And I actually started harming myself. And that's just because, for me at that time, it was because I wanted to control my own pain. And so it was a really, really dark place for me. But the Lord,
Why do you feel like you were feeling so much pain? Was it the rejection from your friends? Was something going on in your family? You said that you went to like a really dark place and you were experiencing a lot of pain and you wanted to control your pain.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think that pain was coming from? Can you just explain to our viewers a little bit about where was it from the rejection? Like what was that darkness that you were experiencing?
Yeah. So like I said before, I'm pretty sure a lot of it was from my friends, because that was the first time I really experienced rejection in that kind of way. But I also think a lot of it was from some family dynamics as well. So my mom, she got married recently as well, and I had some. It was hard to get along with my stepdad, to be honest, during that time, and so there was major transition into that as well, and I felt really just torn between myself and who I thought I wanted to be, and who other people are trying to tell me who I am as well. So the cutting, it made me feel like I had some kind of control over those feelings and over who I am. And it was extremely harmful, obviously. And it actually that continues on for about 10 years, and I'll talk more about that later. But it was kind of a safe place for me for a little bit.
Yeah. So let's back up just a little bit
Mhm.
because I don't think we hit on it at the beginning. But you said that your mom was getting married. So you come from a family of divorce. You come from a broken home.
Mhm.
And so what age did that happen? Just give me like a real brief kind of synopsis of that process for you and your family.
Yeah, absolutely. So that happened when I was about 4 years old when my parents got divorced. And I think it was like a year later is when she started dating my now stepdad. Um, and so, like I said before, they had my mom and my dad, they had a really good friendship still out of it, at least. And at least it was like in front of us. That's how they were portraying it. And I'm really grateful for that because I know with some families, they don't really have that kind of friendship. It's more obvious that they didn't like each other. So, so she met my stepdad shortly after that, and he's been in my life ever since. And he's very pivotal in my life as well, and he's still around. So
Yeah, well, praise the Lord.
yeah.
So you think that you could possibly have had rejection already from your parents' divorce, and then maybe in that season you got saved. Spiritual warfare was at an all-time high, maybe just because you're starting to work out that salvation. Now you're having friends reject you, which is like compounding the pain from what you already experienced from a young age. And you said at that point you didn't know how you felt with your stepdad at that point. So you're really just experimenting, trying to figure out, how do I cope with this life?
Yeah.
Okay, so fast forward, you said for about 10 years, you were living this lifestyle of starting to drink, starting self-harm, all these sorts of things. Where did that take you over the next few years? I mean,
That's a big question. So to backtrack a little bit before the 10 years, so I ended up making really good friends, and I thank the Lord for this. During my 8th grade year, before entering a high school, I became friends with some women that were Christians. We started going to church. Like I went to church summer camp at least twice a summer until from like I think it was like 11 to 18 because I loved it. I loved who I was when I was there, and I loved just being that way and just being around the Lord. Like it was different. I knew that, but like whenever I went back into the world, into school, like that's when things like I became lukewarm, transparently. But going back to when I was 18, or not 18, 14, I was friends with these Christian girls, and like they were a light in my life. They really helped me through some dark times. But then in high school, that's when it started getting bad again. So transparently, I was dating someone at the time. He was like one of my first like big boyfriends, and we were dating for about 2 years, and I ended up cheating on him. And I remember that got around in the school that I did that, and I felt horrible about it. But then people started calling me names. It's just, yeah, just calling me really mean names in that way. And that really, again, to the identity aspect, I wasn't super rooted with the Lord at that time, so I was really easily swayed. But what they were kind of saying, I was like, well, if you're going to call me that, I'm going to show you what that actually looks like. So they were calling me
Oh,
like
wow.
a slut and a whore, and I was like, I'm going to show you up there. I'm going to show you what that looks like. And I went about, and I stopped caring what other people thought in that way. And that's when things got really bad, and I started dating someone new my junior year, and that's when I started really getting into more drugs as well. And drinking just got even worse. And I started partying way more. And I was like, the drinking was really bad. Like, I remember my senior year, there was a really dark point where I had broken up with this boyfriend, and I was just in a really dark place. I was just really lost. An enemy had a hold on me. And I purposely got drunk every day after school and blacked out drunk just so I could like not remember things. And it was really bad. And I remember I went to my parents afterwards because I was looking at myself one night in the mirror, and I was like, who is this? Because I just saw like this gray person, someone who was just really lifeless and who was just dead. I was like, this isn't me. And I was terrified of what I saw in the mirror. And after I saw that, like I just bawled, and I went to my parents. I was like, I have a problem and I need help. And so that was my first journey to starting to recognize that I need help with addiction.
Yeah. So tell me, how did your parents respond to that when you came forth? You were transparent. You told them, "Hey, I've got this issue. This is going on right now." Was it a positive reaction? Were they supportive? How did that go?
Oh, they were incredibly supportive. They knew I had issues, just because I was coming home smelling certain ways, acting weird ways. Like they knew what was going on, but I don't think they knew the extent of why I was doing it and the pain I was feeling and the emptiness I was feeling at that time.
Mhm.
So I revealed so much when I came to them. I was like, this is what's been going on. Um, these kind of things are happening. And so they were really supportive. They helped me get the help that I needed my senior year. And there was a lot that happened too. So you could tell they were heartbroken too about it though as well. Like they didn't know what to do, but they were trying to be there for me.
Yeah, for sure. For
Yeah.
sure. So, do you think that this rejection you faced started with maybe your parents' original divorce and then feeling out of control in your life? Then you're having rejection from friends. You did find a good friend group. Then you're kind of in this dating life, different things. Have all these rumors spread about you at school. These things aren't true. So that reinforced that rejection. Do you feel like that was the driving force behind the addiction, behind the pain. It was all rooted in this rejection from everybody.
I think it was to help kind of fill in something. Only some, like, now that I know it's the Lord that fills in those gaps, but at that time I didn't want that, I guess. I was trying to find feeling in other places to help cope with what I was feeling. So I was using the drugs, the drinking, the sex as well to help fill that.
And it never filled it, right?
It did not fill it at all. It got so much worse, so much worse.
Yeah. So, hey, anybody in our comment section, if you resonate with this story so far, please let us know in the comments. We want to talk to you guys about this. And even here at the Supernatural Life, we'd love it if you'd become a forerunner, because we have a whole team ready to help you, to walk you through it, to pray for you, to do deliverance with you, and to just support you in your journey. So make sure, again, that you're liking and subscribing, and that you're commenting and engaging, because we will have people comment back to you and be there for you. But with that, tell me, you went to rehab. Is this where you found the Lord? I want to jump into where was it that you really found safety, where you really came out of this lifestyle, or what was it that changed for you?
Yeah, so I didn't go to rehab until college, actually.
Okay.
So that was my senior year. I went to a therapy thing.
Oh,
so,
okay.
Basically, share more of my testimony, my story. So that senior, like I said before, it was a really dark place for me and a really dark time. Not only did I go through all that drinking, like almost daily, with the drinking came a lot more spiraling as well. So I was at a party, and at this party, I was very drunk and I was on drugs, and there was a moment where I got taken advantage of by three different men at the same time.
Wow.
And I remember this. I remember it vividly too. I remember asking them and begging them to stop, because I was going in and out of consciousness. But I remember like begging them to stop, and then like them switching.
Wow.
And I remember I was crying out for help, and finally like someone came in and like stopped it. But like when I was trying to share it with like some friends of mine, it just seemed very dismissive, and no one like really took me seriously.
Yeah.
So that kind of made my drinking even worse after that, because I felt a lot of shame in that situation. And so so that happened, and my drinking still continued, even like throughout the therapy still. Like I was getting some inner healing and deeper things from my childhood, but I was still continuously drinking, and I knew I had an issue, but I was still doing it. And then later senior year after graduation, I remember after graduation, there was a few weeks after it, there was a party that was supposed to be going on. And I remember my friend and I, we were getting ready to go to this party. And when we were driving up to it, we saw all these police cars around the person's house. And we're like, what is going on? Like, we saw like the police officers like had like these big guns, and we're like, what is happening? All these people came up. There was tape around everywhere. And I see three of my friends like in handcuffs on the driveway, right? And we're like, what is going on? And I remember at that point, another friend of mine pulled up, and I was like, what are you doing here? Because he wasn't really friends with the group of friends that I was meeting up with. And I remember he got out of the car and he's looking at me, and I remember like he's like trying to say something, and he just could not speak. Like he was just so dumbfounded. Like I remember he got on his knees, he's like looking up at me, and he was like, nothing was coming. I was like, what are you doing here? Like, what is going on? And I see that his dad's with him, and I see that he walks over to the police officer, and I remember he just starts bawling. I was like, so okay, something like major's happening. What ended up happening, it's so sad. A friend of mine ended up losing his life that night by the friend that came out of the car and couldn't speak. And that was a really traumatic time.
So just so we understand, the friend that got out of the car and he was from maybe a different circle of friends, you're like, why are you here? And he was responsible for why the person who's maybe house you were going to, or one of your friends involved in that group, he was the one responsible for this situation.
Yes. Taking his life.
Wow.
Yeah. And I remember after that situation, I was friends with both of them. And I remember after that situation, I remember thinking, like, my life needs to change. Like, so I remember telling myself the summer before going to college, like, I know the kind of person I can be. And so this was one of the times where I like seek the Lord heavily during that summer. I was like, God, like, help me through this. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. Help me through this. And so I went to another summer camp to help me get my path straight, basically. That's how I kind of saw it, and like just changed my life, because I was like, I don't want to continue this. And so that lasted for a little bit.
So you're really living this life of like, you come to the Lord and then you kind of go backwards a little bit. So yes. I'm really seeing like this pursuit of the Lord after you your whole life.
Yes, he keeps knocking on the door. Ever since I gave my life to the Lord, when I got baptized when I was 13, he's been knocking several times. And this is one of the opportunities where he did. And I was open to it for a little bit. And then when I got to college, I remember I was going to join all these clubs and try not to party as much. Here's the thing, though. When you do that and you are going to a new place, and I remember going to this college and I only knew 3 people that came from my school. So I was like, yay, I can start a whole new identity. I can be a whole new person. And I remember when I got there, I became friends quickly with people that I was familiar with because I got really uncomfortable. And I started partying again. I was doing the same exact thing. I had margarita Monday, tequila Tuesday, wasted Wednesdays, thirsty Thursdays. Like, I was drinking every night continuously again. And there was a point in college where I'm thinking back to it, I'm really grateful this happened. I ended up getting in trouble for drinking in my dorms. And because of that, I didn't get arrested or anything, but I got a ticket. And I wanted this expunged from my records. So I purposely decided with the Corps I'm going to go through a program to help get this expunged from my record. And so I think it was like a 3-month drinking class to help with that process. And I remember throughout this time, though, I was in a really, really dark place. Like, I tried for like maybe like a month to like really take a minute and stop drinking, but it got bad because I was in a really bad relationship at that time too. And I started cutting again during that time. Mm-hmm. And I just noticed that like I have a deeper issue with drinking than what I really thought I did. Mm-hmm. And it was revealed during that. And so I told the person who was in charge of my classes on the very last day, I was like, listen, I've been drinking this whole time and I actually think I need to have further help. So I went to the court and I told the judge that. And throughout that summer, I was in inpatient rehab for drinking. And I remember I went to the youth side. So like I was at 19, so I could have chosen to go with more of the women or to go with the youth. And I decided to go with the youth. And I was really important that I did that too. I remember that because I was the only one there, because there was kids in there that were 13 all the way to 18, 16. And they all had like either heroin addiction, so young. It blew my mind. But I remember I was the only one there that actually wanted to get help because I knew what was going on. And I was trying to encourage everyone else because they just thought they had to be there, a lot of those kids. But I was like, you have no idea what this kind of lifestyle can lead to. And so anyways, I received a lot of help during that rehab, and like that was a really pivotal time for my journey. And like that's when I started slowing down a little bit with drinking. I was still drinking a lot, but like I wasn't partying like I was. I wasn't doing all the excessive drugs. Like I wasn't doing like Molly, Coke, everything at that time. I wasn't going crazy. after that.
Yeah. So I'm even seeing, so if you're watching this, you might relate to her story, and maybe you're in a situation where you're struggling with addiction or something along those lines. And I'm seeing a connection here because if you'll hear what Katie's saying, she's saying like, this was another dark time in my life because I was in this bad relationship, or this was another dark time in my life because of my friends. So you can see this connection between her rejection, her bad relationships, the kinds of people that she tended to rely on was fueling the plans of the enemy over her life. Wouldn't you say there was a really deep connection between those things?
100%. 100%.
Yeah. So after you come out and you're slowing down, you're not totally like living a sober life, but you have slowed down. You're not partying. You're not doing all the hard stuff. Are you going to church at this point? Are you seeking the Lord at this point? Are you recognizing even that it's the relationships that are kind of fueling what's going on in your life?
It's a really good question. So during that time as well, instead of going to the Lord, I started messing more around with more New Age practices.
Oh, wow.
So that's where my curiosity with that kind of goes in there, because in my mind, I didn't want to be a hypocrite, because I still wanted to live. I still wanted to sleep around. I still wanted to drink a little bit. I still want to do all these things. And I didn't want to be a hypocrite, because I knew if I followed the Lord, I had to give up that. And so also in my mind as well, I was like, it's just religion, and it's just they're trying to control people. And I went through like this whole thing, like where I was kind of convinced at that point that Jesus may have been real, but people have abused it and abused religion to control others. Mm-hmm. So I just like had like this weird mindset where like I acknowledged he was kind of there, but I'm not going to follow him. So then after all that, I still was. I knew I needed something higher than me. And if you are in AA, you understand what I mean by that. Or if you've been encountered with AA, you understand that the higher power aspect. So that's when I started dabbling more into the New Age. I started getting more into yoga and more of the witchcraft type of stuff. Like I believed more in the universe at that point. So I started diving more deeper into that. And that's when things got really, really messy as well.
So you didn't believe in God at this point. You just believed more in like the universe and the energy and all of that.
Yep.
Okay. Do you feel like the drugs were an open door for this mentality?
I can definitely see that it was. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you go into this. Were you doing like spells? Were you doing that sort of thing? Or how deep did you get into this lifestyle?
Yeah. So for the witchcraft aspect, I was doing things alone, but like I was still like reading books, right? I was reading like white magic type books because I watched Charm when I was a kid. I was like, there has to be good witches then, because they're fighting evil. And so I started dabbling it personally, and I was like, I had a whole grimoire. I started like doing little things like that. I started becoming like a green witch type of thing too, so like more like herbal type of stuff. And so I was doing some things with that. And then for like more the New Age aspect, I started like manifesting type of things and like saying things out loud. And I was like, okay, I'm like the god of my own universe, basically, because we're all one kind of thing. Like just like
you drank the Kool-Aid.
I did. I drank the Kool-Aid hardcore. I definitely did. I didn't really get into the whole crystal aspect. I thought that was a little off. So I never really got into whole crystal, but the Reiki things I started getting into. I started dabbling into it, I guess. And the angels' numbers and the horoscopes. I was so into the horoscopes, like the whole numbers and the like the rising signs, the moon signs. And the tarot reading, I started getting into tarot reading as well. I never did them myself, but I was like actively like watching the people do or like just being involved with it. I saw a psychic as well during this time. I was getting really messy into it, but I knew there was something more. Like I knew the spiritual aspect was more. And I was craving at that time the supernatural. That's what it was. I was craving the supernatural because I've encountered things before. I was like,
Right.
so I knew there had to be more.
Right. So as you're going deeper and deeper into this, is your life getting better? Is it getting worse? You know, you're not drinking as much, but you want to kind of hold on to these things. Do you feel like, we know it's not helping, but do you feel like at that point it was helping, or did it get worse? Did it kind of, did you lose control of that?
I did lose control of it. Slowly, I lost myself. I became very numb and depressed, and because I was trying to do things on my own, and I sucked at doing things on my own. I sucked at trying to direct my path. I sucked at trying to stop things or control things, my environment. And I noticed that it slowly started chipping away at my personality and who I was. And I remember this so vividly too. I remember there was a night I was dating someone at this time, and I remember I was crying because I felt nothing. I didn't feel any joy. I didn't feel any like anger. I was so numb. I cried because I was so frustrated. I was like, how can this be my life? Like, I don't know where I'm going with it. And I remember that so vividly. That was such a dark, dark time. Like, I was like, that's when I really realized, like, I am actually in trouble.
It was like you were actually lost. You were lost.
I was so lost. I didn't know who I was. I didn't know where I wanted to be. I had no goals.
You had no direction at that point.
No direction.
So how did you get out of that? Was there a person that helped bring you out of that? Did you have a different supernatural encounter that maybe brought you out of that? How did you come out of that?
So both, actually.
Okay.
So let's get to it. So I was into that heavily for about 5 years, the whole like new age witchcraft stuff. And this was at the end of 2020. So my dad, he got diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. If you don't know much about stage 4 pancreatic cancer, that's a really intense and aggressive cancer, and people typically don't live past 6 months. So when that happened and he told us that, I moved in with my dad. And so this was also during C-19 as well. So there was people weren't getting out as much and all that. And so I went to live with him. And my dad is a praying man. And he is a Christian, and he, even despite seeing me go through all the things that he did, and my goodness, he had a lot of grace and a lot of patience.
Like, thank God for praying parents, right? And parents who don't give up on us.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm at his house and I'm taking care of this. And I remember, I'm still in New Age. And I remember there was a night where I decided I was going to do like this really intense breathing exercise to help release a lot of anger and sadness that were like deep within me. But like I mentioned before, I could not express emotion. I felt very numb. But I knew it was there because I had thoughts going through my mind. I could feel it, but I just needed it to be released. And at that point, I couldn't even cry. Like I didn't cry for months, like nothing. So I was doing this exercise to purposely release all these feelings coming out. And it was a yoga thing. And I remember when I did that, it was like a rhythmic breathing. And there was one point where like, instead of something being released, I felt something come in, and I knew it was demonic because something I experienced in high school. And to backtrack that real quick, when I was in high school, I was at a person's house, and her mom openly did witchcraft. Like, they had pentagrams all over the walls. Wow. And she talked to the dead apparently. And so at this party, there was 2 separate groups. There was a group that stayed behind and a group that went to go get food. I was the group that went to go get food. And when I came back, I was like looking for everyone. And that's when I walked into this room. And I remember when I walked in, I felt like this really heavy, disgusting feeling. And I knew it was demonic. I remember I got like really upset. I was like, what is going on in here? Like something was just really off in the atmosphere. And there was just a lot of fear, right? So later I found out that this girl, she was trying to talk to someone that had recently passed from a drug overdose. And they were all friends with him. And it ended up not being him, ended up being a whole demon, like seeing a lot of crazy stuff. And like there was a lot of fear that came out of that. So that same feeling that I felt when I was at that time, I felt come into my body at that moment. And my body started shaking like uncontrollably, and I couldn't stop my body at all. And I remember I felt so much fear. And after that happened, I remember I was like, what just happened? I was so confused. And so I went to the only place I could think of that time. I went to YouTube. And that's when I came across a testimony of someone that encountered the same thing I did and how they went from from New Age to Christianity. And that piqued my curiosity. Mm. And so I started watching more videos and more videos. And I talked to my dad about it, and he was like confirming some things here and there. But I spent a solid month after that just researching the Bible. And because I needed that research again, because as I mentioned before, like that's what kind of like led me away from the Lord, because I was convinced that religion just was there to like just manipulate people and cause all these things. Anyways, so I researched the Bible to make sure it was actually real. I did like a whole bunch of like archaeological research, and continuously I just kept getting proven that the Lord was real. The Bible was real. Okay. Wow. So I remember this. So it was like maybe 2 months after that. It was like February, March at this point. And I was like, okay, I'm convinced. Jesus, I invite you into my life and as my Lord and Savior. And I remember that was the first time I bawled in so long. Oh. That was the first time I felt peace in such a long time. I just felt his warmth. I felt like I was just enveloped in love and just warmth. And I just let everything out. And ever since then, I just been in awe. And
wow.
Just in awe.
So everything you were looking for in New Age, that actually manipulated you. It took you away from who you actually are. You were trying to find your identity and being in control. But it was actually whenever you gave your life to Jesus that you found everything you were looking for in New Age.
Yes. Yes.
That's so powerful.
And I mentioned this before too. Like I knew I was not doing well with choosing my own way of life. I was choosing all the wrong things. And I was like, God, at this point, your way is going to be better than anything I have. So here I am.
Amen.
Direct my life. And so, yeah, it's been such an adventure since then.
At that point, you let go of the control. You let go of the New Age that you've been trying to find all this comfort in, where you actually found it in Jesus. Was life just different from there? It was easy, or how did life change from that point?
That's another great question. It definitely was not easy after that. So as I mentioned before, my dad, he was going through pancreatic cancer, and this was like 3 months in. And so I was still, I guess the easy aspect and the more peaceful aspect is I knew he was going to heaven, and I knew I was going to heaven now as well. So I knew I would see him again. And so there was a lot of peace in that. And I talked to the Lord a lot. Like I was reading my Bible like 8 hours a day. I was spending time with him. So in that way, like there was peace. But when you come out of something like that, there's a relearning. And I know every Christian that has went away and came back, like they understand that. And so I remember Lord's grace is something, let me tell you. So something as well is at that point, I had been smoking since I was 16, like cigarettes, right? And so I remember I was like reading my Bible with a beer in the hand, smoking my Juul, And
What a picture.
right?
I literally can't even picture you like this. Like the Katie I know now, I'm trying to picture you.
I know.
Guys, if y'all want to hear more of these funny stories, we're going to go into this more. We're going to go into some of this stuff more in our behind the scenes. So become a member because you want to hear these stories behind the scenes. But anyway, tell me what you were saying.
Amen. So the Lord's grace. So I was drinking, I was smoking, I was high on my Adderall, and I was reading the word, and I was so enthralled with learning about the Lord and just learning about him and like just the Bible in general. Quickly though, he was convicting me of certain things. So another thing as well, during this time I was dating someone, and we were in a relationship for about 4 years at this point. And so I came to the Lord when we were dating, and one of the biggest things and the first things he really started convicting me of was not to have sex. And so I remember I told my boyfriend at the time that I was a Christian now, I'm following the Lord. He was so excited for me. But then when I told him I didn't want to have sex anymore, it was like taking a candy away from a toddler or a toy away from a toddler. He was not happy about it. And we ended up breaking up over it because I was just really appalled by his reaction, to be honest. I thought I was more than just my body to him. And kind of based off his reaction, how I took it, it seemed like it was too much of that. So I was like, okay, we're going to break up. Right. So that was happening. And then the Lord was like also really working on me with this as well. Like he was telling me, he's like, I made you for a reason. So like the way your brain works and the way you are, like you don't have to take all these drugs to be a certain way. Because at that point as well, I was not on Adderall, but I was also on antidepressants as well. And so he was telling me, he's like, I made you the way you are. Why are you trying to change your brain chemistry?
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
I was like, that's such a good point. He was like, there's a root issue. It's not your brain, but what the medication is doing is numbing things out. I was like, that's such a good point, Lord. So then I started like slowly like getting off my antidepressants as well. And like, if you've done this before, or if you have not, it takes a little while to get off it, because if you stop cold turkey, your body's going to be shaking, because it really does do a number to your brain and to your body, because it changes the chemistry. And so I started getting off that as well, becoming more clean as in that way. And I stopped taking my Adderall. I stopped drinking significantly. I stopped doing the green stuff. The Lord was like telling me as well, like when you do that, it's not knowing at this time that it was actually witchcraft, but he was showing me like what smoking does. It creates like a field around you where it's hard for him to communicate with you, right? Now we know it's witchcraft, what that's doing. Anyway, so he's convicting me. He's walking me through things. He's really patient. He's really kind. He's such a gentleman. Y'all, he's such a gentleman. And so we are so close. And so in July, so about 7 months, my dad ended up passing away. He ended up going to heaven. And I remember it was easier than what I thought it would be, because I had the Lord with me. It was still really hard. And I told this people often, I lost a dad, but I gained a father out of this whole experience.
Wow, that's so powerful.
It is. And I want to share this too. So my dad, as I mentioned before, he was a praying man. And he continuously prayed for me to come to the Lord. And there were 2 main prayers that the Lord answered, and he told me this too. He told me he prayed for at least 3 years of living after retirement. And he got exactly 3 years. Isn't that wild? He got 3 years of life after he retired, but he also prayed for me to come back to the Lord. And the Lord answered his prayer. And my dad was pivotal during my walk with the Lord at the beginning, because we would talk about the Lord all the time. And for like just hours, like I would just ask him, like I'd be like in my room reading something, ask the Lord something, and I would go to my dad's room, like ask him something as well. about it, and like we would just talk about the Lord. I was really close with my dad when I was growing up, but there was like a few years like before his passing where like we kind of like we weren't as close. So this like really brought us together again.
Mm-hmm. So it was like a really healing time for you before he passed, and really like that was a gift from the Lord for sure.
It really was. I'm super grateful. So I'm so grateful for that time with my dad. It was hard to see him that way because I saw him like slowly decline physically, but I also saw so much courage and so much love and just like the fruit like that the Lord did in his life. And like that's what like really encouraged me to like continue with the Lord as well. And I remember towards the beginning of my relationship with the Lord and like getting to know him, like I needed like facts and that kind of like relationship with the Lord at first. I remember praying because I was like watching my dad and I heard how he like talked about the Lord. I was like, God, like I want a relationship like how my dad has with you, like where it's really personal and you're like his best friend. I was like, eventually I want to get to that point. And we definitely did. But I just remember like the way he just lived and just like loved on others. It was such a testimony. I was like, his life was different. So,
yeah.
So can I share something with the people? Okay. For parents that have a child that's a prodigal child that maybe once was and now is away, I want to encourage you to keep praying. Prayer helps so much. And just remember that they're the Lord's child first. And the Lord's got them. And I hope that releases some burden off of some people's backs or off some people's shoulders. The Lord's got him, but prayer, it works so much, and I'm a testimony of that. And it may not look like the way that we thought it would, but it's going to happen. And so I hope that's encouraging to parents. So I wanted to share that too.
Yeah, that's so encouraging. I know something that we can all hold on to if we're parents, just knowing no matter what happens with our kids. My kids are young, but just knowing no matter what happens, God's got them. God's got them. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's so powerful and something to really hold on to for the parents who do have prodigals. So tell me, after the season, clearly your dad was very pivotal in your walk. You are actually a legacy of his prayers. You are continuing on his walk with the Lord, the legacy. And so that is very powerful in and of itself, that when we pray for our kids, we're leaving a legacy. After this happens, this is really the peak of your testimony of what God's doing in your life. But after that, obviously, at some point, you came here to the supernatural life.
I sure did.
So tell us about that. After you get to this point in your life, you're really seeking the Lord. You're not perfect, but you have a relationship with him. And I think that's another beautiful testimony for our viewers. Like, you don't have to have it all together, right?
You do not.
You're smoking and drinking while you're reading your Bible. So the Lord still met you where you were at. That's such a beautiful picture. But I can't even picture that. So clearly God's done a mighty work in your life. How did you get here? How did you get to the supernatural life?
Oh my goodness. That's a whole story in itself too. So I ended up, the Lord led me to a chiropractic office in Carmel, Indiana. And I am so grateful that he did that. And through this place, so at this time, I didn't know how to talk with people again. And I lost a lot of confidence in that way, but I knew I had the Lord. I knew he was making my path straight. I knew he was making me stronger in the person who he's always made me to be, right? So he led me into this wonderful chiropractic office to help build up like just leadership and just who he wants me to be, because it was a Christian-based chiropractic office. Like, we prayed every morning. So I've been there for a couple months, and we had one patient come in. Y'all might know him. It's Evangelist Keegan. He was not Evangelist Keegan at that time. Keeg's Ice over there. He was a patient at first, and he came in, and I remember the first time I heard about kind of like TSNL was when he came in. He came in 3 minutes before about to close. And I remember he was like really rushed. He was like, I have to get adjusted. My back really hurts. And we're
so
like,
classy. 3 minutes before they close.
Right. And so we're like, fine, just go back there, get adjusted. So he gets adjusted and all that. He comes back up front and he's like telling the story about it. And he was he was saying like how he was at like this deliverance thing. It's like, or session, I don't know, revival in Detroit. And I was like, I don't know what this means, but okay. And he was like, yeah. And I was like catching people falling. I was like, I don't know what that means, but okay. And he was like, yeah, I had to catch a 300-pound woman. That's why I'm here to get adjusted. I was like, and I started cracking up because he's a storyteller. Y'all know how he is. And that was the first time I kind of heard about TSNL. Long story short too. So he shared his testimony. He ended up getting let go, right? At your other job at the church. And that's when he came to work at the chiropractic office. And that's when we started getting like a lot closer. We were working in the same area. And he started talking about like demons, revival, and like all this stuff. And I remember like when I first met him too, like I knew something was different about him. Like the way he just spoke about the Lord, just like his fire for the Lord. And like I knew there was something different and I was gravitated towards that. I was like, what is that? Like there's just something different than I've ever encountered before. Like at the church I was going to at the time, like I was the only one like really like praising the Lord, like just wanting to like dance for him, like just getting into it. But I hadn't experienced anything like that. But when he started talking about demons, I knew there were demons because of my own personal testimony of how I came to the Lord.
Yeah.
And the whole thing. But I started like getting more curious, and he was really open about it. And so thank you for your patience, by the way, and describing everything the way that you did, Keegan, as well. So anyways, so he's talking about it. He's talking about the ministry he's in. And I was like, this is so interesting. So he kept inviting me to a whole bunch of events. And then there was just finally one time I went to a deliverance thing with him. And this is so fun. So it was on his birthday. We ended up going to a girl's house that needed deliverance. And she was a practice member at that time. She came in having some issues with like passing out and seizing just out of nowhere. She was young as well. And there was one incident at the office where she had a seizure while on the chiropractic bed, I guess is how you want the board, the bed. And Keegan went over there and commanded the spirit to come out, and she stopped seizing.
Wow.
And it blew all of us away. We're like, what is that? Like, how, like, why did it stop? When he said that, I was like, maybe there is something more. So then later on his birthday, we ended up going to the girl's house because her mom was like, maybe there's something more, because she was desperate at that time. She went to a whole bunch of doctors, nothing. They weren't giving her any answers, basically. Yeah, the daughter lost the speech or hearing. Like something really traumatic happened. It was a deaf and dumb spirit.
Yeah. And so if you guys know Evangelist Keegan, he walks in this crazy boldness. He doesn't care where he's at. We know it was a wild story. We know that mom was like, okay, there's something here, because there's no shame with Evangelist Keegan.
There is no shame at all. No shame. So we end up going to this girl's house, and that's when I meet the hub leader, Indiana hub leader at that time as well. And that night, I thought I was just going to witness all this. No, that night I got baptized in the fire, the Holy Ghost.
Hallelujah.
And that was the first time I ever fell out. I started speaking in tongues that night. It bubbled from my stomach, started giggling, and that's when my life really took a turn for the better. But I was like way more on fire at the point, which I'll get into that later. But anyways, so right after all that happened, we go straight into the deliverance with this girl. I'm speaking in tongues, praying. And I remember this is the first time I ever heard a demon scream as well. So Keegan and the hub leader at that time, they were saying like how there's monitoring spirits outside. And like that was like hindering the deliverance going on. So this is, mind you, this is like 10 o'clock at night on like a Wednesday night. And Evangelist Keegan goes outside and starts screaming in tongues at the top of his lungs outside. And this is an apartment complex, so you could hear him. And he's just telling all these things to go. And then that's when I hear demonic screams like that. Like I heard it and I was like, what was that? I was like, this is such a wild thing. And so that was my first encounter. I got baptized in the Holy Ghost that night. I speaking in tongues, helping with the deliverance, seeing all that. And I was like, Lord, this is fun. This is what I've been waiting for.
The rest is history.
The rest is history. And my goodness. So that fire boldness, that started happening more and more. And so the first revival I ever went to, the first time I ever met Apostle Daniel was at Firehouse in Chicago. And that was the very first deliverance I went to. I went with Keegan and a few other people. And I remember being in there and everyone was like just worshiping their hearts out. Everyone was just so full of joy and just life. I was like, this is what heaven's going to be like. I remember thinking that. And I was just taking it all in. I was like, this is what heaven is going to be like. Like, it's so lively in here. Like, people are just alive. I was just so in awe about that. But the first time, I didn't really get to talk with Apostle Daniel at that time. But I remember it was the second night, and he's like commanding all these things to go in the crowd. I remember I flew back at one point in the seats, like just crazy things happening. And he was like calling people to come up to the altar, and it took me a while to get up there because the demons inside me were not wanting me to go up there. Like I remember at one point, like I was like waiting in line, and I'm like clawing at myself.
Wow.
Because the demons inside me like just did not want me to go up there, and like because when you do something like that, you have to become unashamed, right? And so I didn't want people to see me. Like that's the thoughts that was going through my mind, but I know it's the demons too. But anyway, so I finally get in line. I do it. And Apostle Daniel at that point, like it's becoming towards the end. So he's just going bop, 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 bop. And I remember when he like bopped me, I fell so hard to the floor. And it was just so much weight. I was like, what is going on and all that. And this one woman, she was a forerunner. I forget where she's from. I forget who it was, but she was praying over me, and she's just praying over me, and she's just speaking words of encouragement. And then she asked me at one point, she was like, there's something you need to release and speak up about and admit. I was like, the only thing that came to mind was something that happened when I was a child. And so I spoke that up to her. And God just works in funny ways. So this is something I never, ever spoke about with anyone. Like even with my therapist, I never spoke to anyone about this because I was just full of shame with it. And I felt really alone with it. And funny enough, this woman of God, she ended up walking through the same thing. And I just hearing her testimony alone helped me like get freedom. Like I was throwing up things right when just from her sharing her testimony.
Wow.
So that was my first encounter of like actually receiving deliverance and like meeting Apostle Daniel for the first time.
Wow, that's so powerful. And at this point, there has been so much in your testimony, so many nuggets, so many different things that people can just take, and so many encouragements that they can take to their own life. So thank you for sharing. This has been such a powerful testimony. Where you've met Apostle Daniel, at this point, you're not a forerunner, right? So how do you become a forerunner? How has your life changed since then? Has it changed even more? You clearly were already on fire for God at this point, but tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I became a forerunner shortly after that, and just being a part, like what I was really missing was that friendship, right? And that family, kind of going back to like how I was when I was a kid and like feeling that rejection. And like, I really just wanted like a good family, good friends. And I found that here in TSNL, and the Lord gave me that. He gave me a new family. He gave me fellowship I've been really craving. And so that's changed my life. And then, like I said, as well, like the fire aspect, before I was shy. I didn't know how to speak with people, and I didn't know how to pray out loud, y'all. Like I didn't know how to pray out loud. I had to be pushed out into that, and continuously, like the Lord just gave me opportunities to do that more and more. and to evangelize. And I was being taught that in this ministry and hands-on. Like I'm so grateful for the people that he surrounded me with during that time and still is surrounded by. Yeah. And so since then I've
Well, you've taken a really big step of faith, first of all. I mean,
I was just about to get there. Yes, I
Yeah.
have. Yeah. So originally, like I said, I'm from Indiana, so I moved down here to Florida. And now I am working with the headquarters and the church in SoFlo as well, doing admin work, which y'all, I didn't even know I could do that. I didn't know I was an admin. I didn't know I had that in me. And the Lord's just been breaking that out and using Apostle Daniel and other people to bring out some of that stuff that's always been in there and just bring it out. And so it's like, I just no other word but just an adventure. It's been a wild, beautiful, amazing adventure. And I'm so excited to see what the Lord has in store moving forward too. Like
Yeah, absolutely. And one thing that really stands out to me that you shared just in general was at the beginning of your testimony, you talked about how you looked in the mirror and you just saw this gray, like kind of just dull person. You were lost. You didn't know. It was just like not a lot of life there. And then you described when you came to know the Lord and you came to this community of people, you said there was just so much life. There's so much life. And so I see that in you. I see how much life, how much joy you have, how much joy you carry. And so we love that you bring that into the supernatural life and you bring that joy here and you just share it. And it's just such an example of the light of Christ and how he makes everything dead alive again.
He does.
And so we want to invite you guys to be a part of the supernatural life. And who knows, maybe you can end up in this very seat sharing your testimony too. You never know what the Lord is going to do. So you guys need to become a forerunner. Like and subscribe to this channel. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, whatever the platform, make sure you subscribe and follow us. Become a forerunner at thesupernaturallife.org. We would absolutely love to have you, and you will have a testimony about how God has changed your life too. Well, thank you so much for coming on tonight, Katie. We have been so blessed to hear your testimony, and I know if you loved her testimony, please tell us in the comment. Please tell us if it has touched you, what part of the testimony has touched you. We would love to engage with you. But this concludes episode 19 of That Supernatural Talk podcast. We'll see you guys next time.